Welcome to this training on the Paleo Diet, also known as the Primal Blueprint, and how it relates to the Power Foods lifestyle. This is a very popular approach to nutrition. You may or may not have heard of it, but it's really taking the world and America by storm because it is pretty aggressive. The whole idea being that we should be eating like our ancestors, those Paleolithic people that lived. And it's interesting because I have actually heard many archaeologists come out and speak against the notions and a lot of the uh, r- apparent research that the paleo world uses to say, yeah, the, the cavemen, they ate lots of meat and all the veggies. And so we're going to go through some of that nuanced information. I'm going to keep it very simple because here at the Power Food Lifestyle, it's not about looking down on any other dogmatic approach. Actually, the Power Foods lifestyle is all encompassing. The Power Foods lifestyle actually gives context to every single nutritional approach and gives it a home and helps us understand it and find meaning to it. So my hope is that for you, by the end of this presentation, you are going to recognize the beneficial parts of paleo, some things that are concerning, and how the Power Foods lifestyle bridges that maybe 15 to 20% of the gap that I really don't know if paleo is the ideal approach for most people. And so we can bridge that gap and make it a great approach when you infuse some Power Foods lifestyle principles to it. So let's first look at what are the similarities to the Power Foods lifestyle. Well, in order to do that, we need to understand some of the basic breakdowns of what encompasses the paleo diet. So they do focus on whole foods, woohoo, focusing on proteins, choosing quality vegetables. They teach not to be afraid of fats. They like you to cut out all grains and legumes, so that's from our carbohydrate category. Choose quality fats. They teach that eggs and yolks are great. Saturated fat is not evil. Fermented foods are good to add into the diet. Don't eat too many nuts, and I'll also include seeds in that. You need to get rid of refined processed flours. Find your way of living that is right for you. And I've actually heard many paleo speakers in forums and summits really discussing that paleo is pretty extreme and that you need to find what works for you. But I'll discuss why even that statement alone is kind of tricky. They don't teach, to my knowledge, any cheat or indulgence days, and they don't give any context for body composition. It's very common. I have somebody come to me who is living a paleo lifestyle, yet their weight's not budging. They're not losing weight. They're not getting ripped. They're not dropping. And they're like, I'm so confused because I'm supposed to be eating this like perfect way. Well, it's because paleo doesn't give any context for that. So let's go through what the Power Foods lifestyle does and find where the agreements are, the disagreements are. We focus on whole foods too, power foods, real foods from the earth. Yes, fantastic, we're in agreement. We focus on quality proteins, but I give some additional context. Do not eat red meat more than 3 times a week, and every single day we should have no more than 2 to 3 servings of animal protein. Make sure that your animal protein is the palm of your hand in size. For women, that's around 3 to 4 ounces. For men, anywhere from 4 to 6 ounces. Choose quality vegetables. Cool, we're in agreement, but I give it further context. I give you 4 categories to help you diversify. You need to hit 1 veggie from each category every single day. Leafy greens, cruciferous, water-based, and miscellaneous. We also teach don't be afraid of fats. Woohoo! Fats are amazing. They're for your hormones. They're for helping with brain therapy. Your brain is 60% fat. And we get rid of this old-fashioned belief that carbohydrates are superior and fats are the bad guy. And instead, we seek to understand each macronutrient for their strengths. We, instead of cutting out all grains and legumes, we put boundaries and portions on those grains and legumes. Those are complex carbohydrates. Are they bad? No. But depending on the goals and the condition that's presenting, we may or may not seek to eliminate those. But that's the thing, Power Foods Lifestyle gives those strategies per the condition and goal that paleo does not yet. Choose quality fats. We agree. I give it more context by teaching you the Power 3 fats. You need to be doing avocado, a healthy oil, and olives every single day. And I also teach a hierarchy of nuts. You can't just eat any nut, but our top 3 include walnuts, Brazil nuts, and almonds. They do need to be raw. We also believe eggs and yolks are great, but I like you to not do more than 3 yolks in a day. We also believe saturated fat is not evil. However, we give it context and strategy for the proper ratios in your body. So for every 2 unsaturated fats you eat, you can then eat 1 saturated fat. It's our 2-to-1 ratio whenever you choose a fat. So for instance, you can eat avocado at your first meal, then you're eating healthy oil drizzled on your next meal. Well, great. Your next meal could have the egg yolks, or it could have the bacon or the sausage or the prosciutto or the salami, and so really looking at that balance, that 2-to-1 ratio. I wish that some research team would take it, because I know that it would drop draws in lowering cholesterol, in helping reduce high triglycerides. The PFL approach, I promise, will rectify and remedy any condition with the right tweaking for the right condition. Fermented foods are good to add in. However, I don't want you to do that until you've cleansed your gut. Otherwise, we're basically feeding both the bad and the good bacteria. We only want to feed the good bacteria in your microbiome and to seal up leaky gut once the bad bacteria and any candida or overgrowth in the small intestine has been really put down, and we want to minimize that. We also believe don't eat too many nuts. My PFL encouragement is no more than 2 servings of nut or nut butter per day. So if you have almond butter, then you also shouldn't be doing much more than 1/8 of a cup of nuts. It really is better for your digestive system. So many of our small digestive irritation and conditions, irritable bowel syndrome, any form of just irritation and loose bowels and colonic problems, that's going to be something we want to pay attention to. We also like you to get rid of refined processed flours, but that's jumping straight into optimality, right? How many of you can do that? I'm going to talk about this a little bit later. My PFL approach is that sometimes we need a roadmap for how to do that. So yes, I would like you to get rid of the white flour in your house. I want you to get almond flour, and I want you to get coconut flour, and let's start using some new flours. Oat flour is another great one. Quinoa flour, yes. But to the extent of like, oh, you're a bad person if you ate that processed food, we'll talk about that. Find your way of living that is right for you. We also believe in that. However, PFL gives you context and strategies and ideas for trying on different approaches while adhering to the main, like the principles that reign supreme no matter which dogma you are sitting under. Indulgent strategies are taught for lifestyle adherence. Now, there may be a time of aggressive push that it might not be wise to plan an indulgence meal. But in my book, The Power Foods Lifestyle, I do discuss that for the majority of people, it's a psychological strategy. For very few people, it's actually physiologically needed. But if you are an intense athlete, perhaps an aesthetics chaser and trying to create sort of look in your body, if you're at that high level end, then yeah, a physiological refeed and some other indulging can actually be quite helpful for your body. It doesn't always mean it needs to be garbage food. It can be, because in comparison of ratio of how often you're eating hydrogenated fats or fine processed oils and flours. Yeah, if it's once in a blue moon, not a problem. But for adherence and a true lifestyle change, for you to live in a world where all around you are these foods and temptation and people who don't eat like you and aren't willing to take it to this level, that can be extremely helpful. And it has been helpful for thousands of people. And I'm so grateful that I've gotten that feedback from each of you. We also teach Tier 2 and Tier 3 of the Power Foods Lifestyle. This gives context to Paleo's Tier 1 and 4. I'll explain that on our final slide, how Paleo, their approach, only covers Tier 1 and Tier 4. They're missing a huge gap of giving you a roadmap to understand your body. This is complex. Nutrition and your body are complex, and you have to understand that. But I'm going to try and make this very simple for you. So let's discuss the mentality on processed foods. Paleo promotes a no processed foods ever dogma and belief. Well, yeah, let's look at that. Are hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated vegetable oils, are they positive? Are they good in our body? No. They're causing inflammation. They're breaking down the gut wall. They're causing distress in the brain. So yeah, is that wise to put in our bodies? No. But is there an adaptation and a time that we need to, work on that? Sure. For some people, what matters is that you know yourself. I have found in my coaching that an all or nothing strategy really leads to feeling frustrated and hopeless. This is a diet mentality, which is why 95% of people fail diets. This is why you probably have in your past some frustration around eating and nutrition and guidelines and this whole on off, extreme, not extreme. Like it just doesn't work for most people unless you are in so much pain or so much fear or so much, let's be honest, neurotic OCD that you can sustain an all or nothing strategy. Now, that's nothing against you if you fit one of those demographics. I used to be one of them. The Power Foods Lifestyle was created because I, for a time, would only eat 25 foods and was fearful of every other food. But my story is for another day. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing to learn about foods and to reduce the fears, but we can only do that when we know the right questions to ask. We're under the right umbrella of leadership and teachership, which I promise you here at the Power Foods Lifestyle, you will find the answers to every question you have if you learn how to ask questions and do the research or work with me. Feeling bad or evil if you eat processed refined foods. Now, I'm not saying paleo preaches that, but by default, when you promote a very extreme mindset, like don't do processed foods ever, then you're naturally going to result in guilt and shame when people can't do it, when they break, when they have a difficult thing happen in their life, when they're having that emotional day, when everything in their life is falling apart and they eat those foods and then, oh great, now they're living under an umbrella of shame and guilt and they can't get the wherewithal to get motivated again. That's not a good thing. So the Power Foods Lifestyle is going to teach you stepping stones to bridge the gap between all or nothing. Think of it like banks of the river. Where you're at is on one side of the river, where you know you want to be and should be, especially to remedy any health issues and to feel your best and live the highest quality of life that you can. We need to have some stepping stones and not just try to leap that river because you might fall in if you try to leap it. So why don't I lay down some stones? And why don't I say, why don't you step here for a little bit? Great. Are you ready? Let's step here for a little bit. Awesome. You're doing great. Now step here for a little bit. Can you see what a different psychological approach that is? In my experience of coaching thousands of people to lifestyle changes, it is very rare that someone can jump straight into optimality and sustain it. I need to put emphasis on that. If you are saying you're doing a lifestyle change, yet you have these heave-ho, give, stop, like approaches, that's really not a lifestyle change. You're still dieting. Congrats. Now, if we can take a very wholehearted, breath-filled approach into making these changes and understand why we're doing it and really looking for these options to sustain, now we're going to succeed. The agreement on mentality of dairy foods. Let's talk about this. The dairy industry is corrupt. Yes, we are in absolute agreement. Power Foods Lifestyle and Paleo absolutely agree. We are not getting quality dairy in general. Now, if you are having access to grass-fed cows, you're getting the milk direct from the farmer, the cheese, you know what? Awesome. But if you're going to your local grocery store and you're pulling the Viva or the whatever brand off the shelf, you're getting so much added sugar. You're getting all of the hormones and the antibiotics that those cows were given in that. If you're drinking 1% and skim milk, you're just drinking sugar water, my friend. You're not getting anything. Now, people, unfortunately, are still in the belief that to get the calcium, they need to drink the milk. False, false, false. Very false. You get more calcium from your greens and following Power Foods Lifestyle approach of vegetables than you will from milk. Fermented dairy is okay as it gets rid of the lactose for 70% of the people. So it's interesting. I wish I could go into the history of why 70% of people are lactose sensitive. Maybe not full-on blown intolerance, but sensitive, yes. And basically it has to do with these herders that lived, hundreds of years ago, that the population of people who go back in time, their genealogy traces back to these types of people, they did develop an enzyme that helped them to process dairy, where 70% of people who don't have those ancestors never developed the enzyme. The genetics and the DNA behind it are very fascinating. So yeah, if you are getting any irritation, loose stools, if you're having any bloating or upset tummy at all with any dairy products, and of course portion size will indicate the level of severity that or symptom that you experience, then okay, but pay attention to it. Now with the PFL approach, some people need this as a stepping stone to optimality. Now here's the thing, if you are experiencing acute disease, illness, inflammation, or autoimmune condition, that's going to be one I'm going to say, yep, we're done. We cut dairy ASAP. Okay, so there are certain conditions, as you can see, that we say, well, a different level of application applies to you. I do the breakout demographics and say, well, this is right for you. Oh, we need to tweak it for you. This one, yeah, go ahead with the straight up principle. That's the key, is you've got to find how your demographic is served by any nutritional approach that you're doing. What are the least lactose containing dairy products in the PFL? If you're not ready to cut all PFL, then go for cottage cheese, kefir, and grass-fed butter. All right, PFL, Paleo Strategies. So if you're like all over paleo, well, how about you bring in some of our principles of the Power Foods lifestyle to what you're doing? And guess what? You're living Power Foods lifestyle. To live a Power Foods lifestyle, all that is needed is that you're paying attention to these principles and that you know our tier 1, 2, 3, 4 of calibrating your intensity. You decide the number of meals to eat per day. Stick to a PVF baseline. Protein sources recommendation, we already went over that earlier, 2 to 3 animal protein, no more than 3 times per week. The red meat, and it should be grass-fed, making sure that you are not choosing the saturated fatty meats except for a 2-to-1 ratio with you, and those count as fats, not as proteins. Protein sources, we did, but veggie sources, you have your 4 categories, your water-based, your cruciferous, leafy greens, and miscellaneous. Hit each of those categories per day, but I would like you to have 6 servings of vegetables per day. Fat sources, remember our power 3 fats, and then the nuts hierarchy, a portion size of nuts or seeds is the palm of your hand, approximately 2 tablespoons. Every seed or nut should be raw. It's best to sprout them because the digestive covering on the cells, or not the cells, on the seeds or the nuts actually can prevent proper absorption. And so sprouting them, soaking them is one of the best ways to absorb those nutrients. But if you're just living the busiest, crazy lifestyle ever, don't stress about things like that. Just eat raw and chew them very, 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 very well. Carb sources, I'm okay if you do gluten unless you have a reason to get rid of gluten. So couscous, so whole grain bread, not a problem, but carbs need to be limited to 20 to 30 grams per serving. So if you're going to eat them, I would prefer that your day be based around PVF and maybe 1, maybe 2 carb servings per day. Preferably, one of them is a fruit, half a cup, apples, blueberries, or grapefruit. Indulgent strategy recommendation, definitely go listen to my podcast, Moderator versus Abstainer. I believe it's number 78. It's in the 70s on the Body Buddies podcast, located on Stitcher Radio, iTunes, or iHeartRadio. Portion sizes recommendations, and protein should be palm of your hand. A carb serving is essentially a fist, or a half a fist, honestly, from the knuckles to the wrist. Vegetables the size of your fist, 1 to 2 cups, 1 to 2 fists. Oils, you're looking at 2 teaspoons to a tablespoon. So think of like your thumb. Avocado, proper serving, put 3 fingers together, the length, the width, the depth. And, you can learn all those. And I do have numerical ways of reaching that. It is a learning process, and you'll need to get on my starter kit so you can get those peak ranges and start learning and read my book. And finally, the 4 principles to adhere to in the tiers. Let's go through this. So tier 1 on the bottom, this is where all people start. So this is like our minimum expectation. Focus on eating more power foods. Choose 1 to 2 foods from each macro group to eat per day. Eat more veggies. Focus on getting them at each meal. Drink more water. Eliminate sugary drinks. Limit sweets. And practice putting your foot down. So this is very paleo friendly. Well, paleo friendly would also a little going into 2, but Power Foods Lifestyle defines it further. You're going to be aware of your food pairing. So you're either eating meals of PVC, PVF, or PVCF. You notice that PV reoccurs as the anchor to every meal, not only for nutrient and antioxidant absorption, but stabilizing the blood sugar, providing the necessary building blocks for your bodies to rebuild the muscle, the bones, the tissues, everything that protein is needed for. All those amino acids, they coil up and they build, was it millions of peptides, and the numbers of possible constructions in order to build different parts of your body. So you got to put those amino acids in there. So that's complies 50 to 70% of the time. That basically means that's not that you're trying to do 50 to 70. That means that you're not yet willing to push that last little bit to get really to a state of optimality. So you're like, that one meal, yeah, I want those Doritos and I want that, chocolate chip cookie, not in an abstainer or moderator way. you're just kind of, you're just not there 100% yet. That's basically what it means. So I'd say that's very paleo-like. Now, tier 3 is what paleo is not teaching, which is, in order for you to have confidence in knowing what total calories and total macronutrient breakdown your body needs, unfortunately, there is no calculator, there is no software, there is no way for you to know this other than to work with somebody who has the experience with working with someone like you to give you a good starting point. From there, then you can tweak and fill around with your body. But the fact is, my friends, you are not a robot. You are a living organism that has unique DNA, a unique microbiome that is going to respond differently. You have different genetics. You have a different response. You have a different body type. You have different blood types. So you cannot, as simple as we want to make this, you cannot expect that. So I encourage you, if you are ready to really make sure you're in the right place to shift your body composition to your desired goal, do yourself a favor. If that means investing a little bit, well, do it. Is it worth the frustration and the fear that comes when you don't know if you're doing the right thing? Why work so hard if you can't have the confidence in yourself to know that your plan is correct? You want to work your bum off, work in the wrong plan, and then be frustrated, be like, why isn't the scale moving? I've been perfect. Well, you didn't get your numbers right. So I really want to highly encourage you to think about that. And that's where most people who present to me living a paleo lifestyle, they've been through tier 1, tier 2 of making these changes, but they have not calibrated the right intakes. You can't just eat healthy foods and expect to lose weight. No, your total macros and calories do matter. Now, is that a different conversation for somebody who's 350 pounds versus somebody who's 140 pounds trying to get to 135? Totally different conversation. So depending on where you're at, go as far as you can and get yourself loving these foods, and then let me help you strategize your tier 3. Tier 4 is where paleo, a lot of these apply to their tier 1 and tier 2. Now they don't teach tiers. I'm basically telling you the tiers that they're teaching. So things like, oh yeah, you need to be choosing your grass-fed meat. Oh yeah, we need to choose trans fat-free oils, which means we get rid of the processed oils, the vegetable oils, the hydrogenated oils, the canola oils. We get rid of the Criscos. We get rid of all of those things. We don't do high fructose corn syrup. We go gluten-free if needed. We go dairy-free, nitrate-free. That means processed meats. We've got to get nitrate-free meats. Organic veggies because of all of the toxins. Supplementation correctly with our omega-3s, our vitamin D, and our magnesium being the core basics here, our Body Buddies. Artificial sweeteners, we really want to get those down. Those disturb the microbiome, that connection to the brain. I guarantee you, if you're doing good cutting out sugar, great. Your next stepping stone is cut out artificial sweeteners. And I know on a psychological level, it can feel like, oh my gosh, like what's even fun in my life anymore? Well, you may or may not need psychological coaching for this, because it is creating a new construct of the way you view the world and perhaps reprogramming many former behaviors and memories from your life in order to support a lifestyle that is going to build your body instead of break it down. Okay, so ideal foods or blood types, food allergies, be careful about orthorexia, which is over, focus, which that's only defined by if a person can't function and like be calm within their lifestyle. And that one's tricky. And I do coach people who are told by everybody else they have orthorexia nervosa. And through our coaching, we just need to make one subtle, like little shift in their mindset and approach. And they're like, oh my gosh, like I can see much more differently now. So that's really what I do as a nutrition strategist, is I help you think clearly. Obviously, I love the nutrition, and there's so much chemical science to teach you and to, educate you on. But at the end of the day, this is really a psychological game of how we approach that science. So I invite you to learn more, and you can do that starting your journey at the Power Foods Lifestyle with my starter kit. This is the best place to start. It is not the end all, it is your beginning. That lays the foundation for your education so that I can then add to it. I am so glad you've been here. Hope you've learned something and think a little bit differently about how you approach your nutrition. Power your body, one meal, one workout, one day at a time.